Hello, everyone, and a big thank you for joining us today. I'm Farah, your host for the day, and I'm really excited to welcome you all to the Applied Intelligence Week, Day 4. Today, we are going to have some insightful discussions on your future in data science, a really interesting topic for all of us, all the data science lovers, and all the data natives who love experimenting with bleeding edge technologies. Now is the time for you. And also, we would be exploring boundaryless opportunities that AI brings to us for a better tomorrow. But before that, let's see from where are you all joining us. You can see on menti.com. So please go to menti.com and enter the code, the 8-digit code that you can see on the screen, and share with us the cities from where you're joining us. The code that you can see on the screen, 20061965. Just to repeat, it's menti.com where you need to go, and the code is 2006 and 1965. Missed it? So I'll just repeat it once again. The code is 2006 1965. So let's see how diverse is AI. Delhi, definitely. Bhilai, okay. Okay, Hyderabad, it's like all over the country we are here. Madrid, that's amazing. Canberra. Okay, so AI is international, definitely. Bangalore, Pune, Nagpur, Kolkata, Hisar. Okay, so we are Haryana, we are in Spain, we are in Australia, Gazipur. That's nice. Greater Noida, Vaishali, Bihar. I just saw Vaishali, Bihar, and we have Bidar. This is so diverse. Okay, we have Lucknow, we have Guntur. Okay, we have Coimbatore, Southern India, amazing. Chennai, Ranchi, we've covered Ranchi. We have Uttar Pradesh, that's a whole of it. And we have Trivandrum. Okay, Nagpur. Great. I think we see we have covered a lot of places in India. We have Spain, we have Australia, and definitely AI is international, AI is diverse, and AI has a lot of impact. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us, for sharing your cities with us. Okay, now, since this is the Applied Intelligence Week, let's try to gauge what does applied intelligence mean to you. So, using this, you must be able to see the question on your Menti window. Please share with us what does applied intelligence mean to you. So, when you think of applied intelligence, what's the first thing that comes in your mind? Future, definitely. And that's what the session is all about. India, okay. Okay, I think we are still in the cities. Data, yes, inside, future, inside, data, AI for sure. Okay, we have solving business problem. So you solve business problem, you go to the future using data and AI, robots, robotics, automation, evolution. That's what AI is all about, for sure. Data science, sixth sense in action. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Technology, yes. There are a lot of robots. So I think AI resonates to automation a lot to people. Present, yes, it's present. It's the future. Machine learning, basic for applied intelligence for sure. Project human IQ. That's interesting. Computer human harmony. Yes, that I think that's going on. Okay, unlock business value for sure. Solve business problems, unlock business value, use data science, use data, go to a future, a better future with innovation and with Accenture. As we can see, there's Accenture as well. Okay, that AI for all. Okay, artificial human. There is a lot of automation for sure. I think we are actually moving towards an AI world. revolution. This is definitely a different kind of revolution. Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing your comments. This was really useful. Okay, now, well, artificial intelligence is definitely the talk of town, right? But when you think of artificial intelligence, it's definitely a game-changing technology, right? However, is it a silver bullet solution as many may suggest? Quite not. Rather, we at Accenture believe and we know that real digital transformation can happen only when you bring AI together with analytics, automation, and a bold vision to apply the technologies at scale. So basically, bring all of these together, make them best of friends, and that is what Applied Intelligence Week is all about. Interesting thought. Hold on to it while I introduce you to Sanjay Sharma to share more thoughts on AI. Sanjay is a celebrity in the applied intelligence world in Accenture as he leads the applied intelligence practice in India. And while I hand it over to Sanjay, one request to all the participants to please enter your questions or any queries that you may have in the chat window, and we'll try to address them towards the end of the session. Thank you so much, and over to you, Sanjay.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you very much. And I'm so excited to welcome all the audience, all the participants in this wonderful week. This is, AI week, which we are celebrating, and this is day 4. And I'm particularly excited because today the topic is one such which is very close to our hearts. Applied intelligence is changing by the day, changing very rapidly, right? And we have to chart our careers in this uncertainty. Okay. Now, if you see AI application, you see it is happening in everyday affairs nowadays, right? You buy an insurance, a reinsurance for a car. You don't go to the insurance company now. You go to a website, you check few details, then somebody starts shooting the suggestions to you. You click one particular site, you get a bot helping you, you enter the details, and maybe you are required to give a picture of your car or previous policy details, and within few minutes you have a policy in your pipeline, in your pocket, in your email box, right? That's one part of it. And we see many such applications, and these applications has increased very significantly in the pandemic time, where we had to reduce the human to human connect. On the other hand, many times when we chart our careers, we end up stumbling into one thing to another and end up with somewhere else, right? Not planning. So some of us plan it very well and steer it, but many of us keep moving with the time and end up wherever we end up, right? If I take my own example, I started as an economist. I opted for econometrics because I thought that I'll be using this for research, right? But then I ended up using it for industry, for business problem. And then came the second revolution, where econometrics were getting faded out in favor of data science and machine learning, right? It was a difficult turn which we had to negotiate. I was not alone. Many of my compatriots at that point of time, we had to negotiate that change, which was like changing your religion, right? You have to loosen your faith on the hypothesis and hypothesis testing, and increase your faith on experimentation, even a quick turnaround of models and evaluation and validation of models, etc., right? And even after that, this pace kept on increasing, and there are not many changes that are happening in terms of platforms, in terms of technology, in terms of languages which we are using, the toolkits which are available to us, etc., etc. Today, we thought, let us bring 4 experts together who can help us peek into the future and try to see what is going to happen, how it is going to happen, and how these experts see as at a good data scientist professional, shaping up in the future, right? And we have chosen these 4 experts from 4 diverse fields, right? We have somebody from academics, a professor from IIT Madras, very celebrated professional in this area. We have somebody who has earned a big name for himself in industry directly, application in the industry, particularly manufacturing. We have two persons from professional services, again, having slightly two different backgrounds. So one has been focusing on public sector and application of data science and machine learning and cognitive things for clients, governments, etc. Other has been, very deep data science, machine learning expert. So Farah, we are, I think, ready to introduce our panelists to the audience now. So, okay, I didn't see the slide actually. Okay, let me introduce. I hope people are able to see the slide with names. But let me introduce. We have with us Professor Rajendran from IIT Madras. He's a specialist and expert in operations management. Actually, he is a professor in Department of Management Studies in IIT Madras. He has published a large number of papers in this area. He's an expert in application of OR, application of data science and machine learning in different aspects of supply chain and operations, right? Our second panelist is Dr. Rajamani Sambashivam, a very well-known person in application of data science in manufacturing particularly. And he has done that in different industries. At present, he's a chief data scientist in Petronas, but even before that, he has been working in different manufacturing setups as chief data scientist. He has a considerable work to his name. We have Tahni Keith, who is our cognitive and automation capability lead in Accenture ANZ in Australia. She has been working with the public sector for last 14 years. And after that, she moved on to Accenture, and she's with Accenture for immediate last 5 years almost. And she has a deep expertise in application of data science and machine learning in different setup, right? Public sector, private sector, government policy, etc., etc. And we have Fernando Lucchini, who is our chief data scientist and global data science and machine learning lead for Accenture. Again, Fer is a very deep expert in application of data science and machine learning, all aspects of data science and machine learning, right? Not only the algorithm and model development, but also how we apply, how we execute, how we bring this model to production at scale, etc., etc. So a big welcome to all our panelists. We are good to go, guys. Okay. Yeah, somehow I'm not able to see that picture. Maybe I'm not clicking at the right button. So maybe let me start with my question without wasting too much of time. Thank you, guys. I can see bright smiles now. Thank you, Dr. Samba and Fer and Professor Rajendra and Tahni. I feel much more comfortable now when I'm see everybody. So let me start with one quick question. One short question, and maybe 1.5, 2 minutes for each of you. And I would start with Dr. Samba with that. Let's keep a 5-year horizon, right? Because it's changing very fast. So we cannot say 10 years, we cannot solve the problem for entire career. So let's keep a 5-year horizon. Keeping that 5-year horizon, when you are going to hire, what you are looking in terms of attributes, skills, are you putting more of emphasis on the attribute, more of emphasis on skills, or what is that ideal data science candidate you might be looking? And I would be coming to all other participants as well on that, with this question.
Thanks, Sanjay, for the question. Right. If I look at the next 5 years, right, AI is already coming in a big way in multiple industries, and the industries are adapting very well as well. So an ideal candidate should obviously know the algorithms, should be very familiar with mathematics. They should be able to code. They should do all those technical skills. Surely it is a must. In addition to that, I would insist that data scientist is none other than a problem solver. So every data scientist actually solves problems, and every problem is unique. So you come across no other problem is identical, right? So every problem you face is going to be very unique and new. So the problem solving skills one need to improve or one need to work on it, and also developing a logic, developing an innovative solution, out of the box thinking. These things will be very, very value adding to any data scientist in the next 4 to 5 years, because a number of automation in AI is going to make the development much more easier and user friendly, and it can be done in a very easier friendly manner. So if one can think as a problem solver and also come up with value added solutions and develop complex logic and develop an out of the box thinking methods, then surely that person is going to be very successful in my view.
Wonderful. Thank you. Fernando, I would come to you, and I know Professor Rajendran will bring a different perspective to it a little later, but before going to him and Tahani, I will come to you. What's your view? Who is a good data scientist? I mean, if I'm going to bring my career for next 5 years, what you're looking in me?
And I have a little different perspective, right? For me, I don't disagree with anything that's being said. One of the things that's going to be important in the next 5 years is that we're going to get a lot of ease of use of these technologies, right? As Dr. Jalmani said. But the truth is that doesn't mean that you shouldn't understand the mathematics and you shouldn't understand how these things work underneath. So there's a real danger that we're giving all this easy to use tools, but we don't understand the principles of the tools, right? So building a neural net takes 3 clicks, but we don't understand what's going on inside. Then that's not good either. So the perfect candidates for me have a great balance of that understanding of the principles, real understanding. I don't mean just the ability to do the math, but to understand the principles really well. But then, as Dr. Jalmani said, being able to apply them in an inventive way. So I think there's a great coming together of the engineering, and by engineering I mean that inventiveness, creation, making things work. That coming together with that, with the science, understanding the science so well that it works for us. And the third one is industry, which is, and I also understand the context of the industry I work in. For Dr. Jalmani, it's obviously the gas and oil industry is a very interesting context. And we do know that the more industry context we see, the stronger the data scientist can be applied. So I think in the next 5 years, the land of the generic data scientist that just understands the science is going to be a thing of the past.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for Professor Rajendran. We had a very interesting conversation with you a few days ago on the same topic, I think. I would request you to share your perspective with the audience on this issue. Dr. Rajendran, I think you are on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, thank you. I personally feel that a person must be good in his domain knowledge. He must retain and continuously improve on his domain knowledge. So the reason why, for example, if I'm a mechanical engineer, I think I should know the fundamentals of combustion engineering. I should know the fundamentals of, solid mechanics or machine design, okay, and mechanics of materials and so on. So basically, I feel that the domain knowledge is going to become indispensable for a person throughout his lifetime. You have an econometrics background, Dr. Sharma. So I'm sure that you realize that if a person is very good in econometrics, I'm sure that throughout his career, the add-on of data science will make him a perfect candidate. That's point number one. Point number two, I also feel that coming from management background, a person must be able to articulate a business problem into a data science problem. At the end of the day, you're going to talk to the customers. So you should know how to get the voice of customers, what we call manufacturing as concurrent engineering, or be a part of the cross-functional team, and able to understand the business, quote unquote, business language. So that is the second one, which I feel the data scientist candidate must have. And third, continual updation of the knowledge, for example, testing himself or herself at the international level by participating in some of the ML competitions such as Kaggle. So that will help the person to benchmark where she or he stands, vis-a-vis the best in the field, in the world. Okay. And fourth one, I think, a person should have a solid background in probability statistics, okay, optimization, both discrete and continuous optimization, and of course, mathematics subjects such as linear algebra. And or not, it goes without saying that you're good in coding. Okay, so I think these are the skill sets which I feel data science candidate must have. Okay, in my opinion, next 5 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tahani. I'm coming to you. Share your views about this. What you are looking in a candidate when you are hiring somebody for, say, next 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all the points that my colleagues have made. We know that in the next few years, the complexity of the problems that we're trying to solve is going to increase. And we know that, that we've touched on that there will be greater responsibility on data scientists to choose the most appropriate solution, and whether that's by assessing different approaches or leveraging deep understanding of industry or principles. But not just, so being a good AI engineer and machine learning and developing statistical models is one thing, and being good at understanding the complex business problems is another thing. But merging these two, I figure, is the real where we need to bring it all together. And it's a whole different side of the coin. So the ideal data science candidate for me is able to translate real world problems into data science problems that they can actually solve. And the flip side of that is also being able to convert the output of data science solutions and communicate this back in insights or actions in a way that's consumable to the business and non-data scientists, and making it usable for the future.
Thank you. Thank you. So wonderful takeaway from this one question with 4 different people. And we got, a beautiful bouquet in return of as answer. So we are looking at attributes. We are looking at key core skills. We are looking at the fact that whatever you are doing, you should be good at it. Then only you will be able to learn. So that's an index for your ability to learn. Putting that in context and getting it harmonizing. So these are the, we are not looking at just one skill, which people may think that, okay, you do a course in coding and you are a great data scientist, but there's a combination of different skills. Wonderful. Let me move to another set of questions, which I would put, one question to each, depending my understanding or your expertise, although your expertise is way beyond what I could get so far. So my first question would go to Dr. Samba. Dr. Samba, you have deep experience in manufacturing and manufacturing related, like energy, right? This is slightly different field from, say, customer management and marketing, et cetera, et cetera. What skill do you see for a person in manufacturing area? Let me put it other way around. Suppose I am a budding data scientist and I am aspiring to create a career in manufacturing. What are the 1, 2, 3, 4 different things which I should focus on to make myself suitable enough for you to notice me and hire me?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Sanjay. Right, I personally feel, as we discussed, manufacturing is slightly a different ball game in say application of AI because of 2 or 3 key reasons. Right, it differs in those 3 reasons. The first one is that manufacturing is there for quite a long time, right? So we have been manufacturing, industry-based manufacturing we have for the last, say, 100+ years. So there is a lot of subject matter expertise and physics-based and thermodynamics, say fluid mechanics, and a whole lot of physics-based knowledge is already embedded, and it is one of the matured areas that we have. And especially if you talk about heavy industries or oil and gas and these kind of industries, when you get in and try to apply AI, the first and foremost requirement is explainability of the results, right? Because the engineers over there who have had decades of experience running that particular operations would surely look for explainability, right? Because there are certain physics-based knowledge that they have experienced it in the real life in the plant. So they would be looking for whether the results from the AI are making sense or it is synonymous to the knowledge that they are gaining. Or if not, then we need to explain why it is not, right? What is the missing piece? So that we have to explain. So the data scientists need to work on the explainability part. If we are saying, no, this is the model, I have built it, the results seem to be okay, please accept it. It may not be acceptable to the manufacturing because they would look for explainability. So the data scientists need to do that additional bit of work to make it acceptable to the operations. And similarly, there are also safety concerns, right? Because especially in energy or major industries and so on, there are, if you are touching anything on the process and so on, we need to ensure safety, and the results should be very, very thorough. And the second point I would like to insist is that almost all the modern manufacturing plants have been, like they have a level 2 automation, right? And any automation is going to control the process in a very, very narrow band, right? There are control systems, optimizers, which are working on top of it, which are continuously optimizing the band in a very, very narrow range. Now, AI should go and improve it further, right? So the accuracy that we would be looking for is also significantly higher, right? Because it's not that the operations are at 50% efficiency, you can make it 80% very easily and so on. It's not going to be possible because already most of the modern manufacturing units, they have put in very good control systems, feedback loops and so on, right? So that is where we need to understand the physics, the process thoroughly, as Professor Rajendran mentioned. And the data scientist should also take that avatar of understanding the process engineer. They have to get into the process. Similarly, the features that we want to build from the data may have to be nonlinear in nature. So we have to work on that, understand the process, work with the plants very closely, the cross-functional team approach, and which results should, we should go towards an explainable results, right? We should be able to explain with rational, with answers, with parameters, and so on, so that we are able to convince the operations to adapt that, right? So these are all the key requirements, I would say, which is slightly different from other industries. And also, for example, like if I'm doing a retail, right, everyone would be able to appreciate it because every one of us are involved in that. But if I'm going into manufacturing, for example, it may be new for me. Like if I'm not an engineer working in that industry, it may be slightly new for me. So that's why that application and understanding of physics, chemistry, thermodynamics, and understanding the process dynamics is a key requirement for any data scientist who wants to work in manufacturing.
Okay, thank you. Far, I'm coming to you with the next question, which is, extending this line a little bit further. In terms of data science skill set, is it industry sector agnostic? Is there one standard data science which is applicable, can work all across, or there are sector specific differences? How people should navigate this difference between a core data scientist and a data scientist, which is, if it is, applicable to one particular industry segment or any particular sector?
Gotcha. And I think we've partly started to answer the question just a second ago, right? I think it is industry specific, but that doesn't mean that there's big walls that separate. So while it is industry specific, and as the good doctor says, we can't just decide that we're going to become a data scientist applicable to the analysis of turbines, wake up in the morning and decide that's what we're going to do. You've heard me say this many times, Sanjay, being a data scientist is a profession.
Yeah,
it's not a skill, it's a profession. But the second part of that profession is being applicable to a particular problem type, because the complexity of the problem is as important as the complexity of the science that may be able to solve it. But many of these fields are very close together. So the analysis of trends in behaviors of people cut across retailing and cut across all sorts of other things, right? As Dr. Rajamani will know, a lot of the industry problems also cut across automobiles and turbines are very close together. So, or mechanical engineering is the problem, right? So I do think that we're seeing more and more what Andrew Ng in Stanford calls, the AI plus X. So this idea of having the very strong scientific, statistical, and machinery knowledge of data science, and a very strong understanding of specific problems. And this is different from 20 years ago when we all started and nobody cared about what we did because AI wasn't so sexy. Today, there's enough number of us and there's enough push in the industry and enough scientists coming out of great universities in India and elsewhere that we can be applied to specific industries. There is enough of us that we can be applied. But what I would leave the audience with is that whilst you can focus on an industry, you can also veer off to others. Your profession is still data scientist applied to gas and oil, applied to retail, but there is that possibility with once that knowledge is attained, you can move into other fields.
Thank you. Thank you, for Tahani, I'm coming to you. Similar question with a slightly different twist. Now, let's me put the scenario on the table. Now you have set of people who are working, say, in AI Hub in Accenture. They are sitting in India at a certain distance from the client, and these are data scientists. Then there are data scientists who are sitting in markets, say in Australia, in Singapore, and they are closer to the client. And there are data scientists who are sitting at client, like Dr. Sambar's team. What are the common factor here, and what are the differentiators? If you are hiring somebody for India vis-a-vis your office in Australia, vis-a-vis Dr. Sambar's office in Australia, what differentiator you would be looking, what common denominator would be looking? Some of them has already been identified here, but I would like you to extend it a little further.
Yeah, I think a data science, like working anywhere, would need to have similar set of skills in terms of like rigor and correctness, breadth and depth of theory, practice and domain knowledge. We know that certain industries, you are required to have deep industry knowledge. Some, for manufacturing areas and stuff like that, you're having a understanding wind turbines and stuff like that is obviously very useful in terms of solving some of those problems. So I think there's a few minor variations in the types of activities that data science will be doing and deal with depending on where they're working. But, I think this from a skill set perspective, I also think there's a lot of similarities. I think like the key differences, is what people are motivated by. Obviously, working in the AI Hub, you're working on, getting a wide variety of exposure to across industries, across clients, across geographic regions, opposed to sitting in sort of one country on a client site. So, you're getting a greater variety of complexity of business problems as well. You're working with different people from around the world, so you're getting exposure to different skill sets, different strengths, different weaknesses. And I think that's a really great opportunity for people to really learn fast and learn, accelerate their learning by getting that length and breadth of projects and different applications of data science across industries. I think, one of the other things that I would say is, that around the AI Hub particularly is there's a strong master and apprenticeship type learning model as well. So we're really strong in terms of learning on the job, being supported by peers and seniors. And, mentoring is just a really big part of how we develop our data scientists as well. So, that mentoring comes with, the opportunity not only to work with people that are sitting right next to you, but the people who are working at the client face or developing those deep industry expertise across, working with Patronus or other clients that we might have. So, I think it's really exciting to kind of have the opportunity within Accenture to move around and leverage your skill sets. But, from a skill set perspective, I think there's a lot of commonalities that people can use to expand and navigate throughout their career.
Okay, wonderful. Dr. Rajendran, we have heard sort of demand side, right? Now the question is, I'm shifting to a little bit of supply side. How the curriculums are evolving, how the way we are teaching and what we are teaching is evolving in our industries, in our educational institutions to cater to this increasing demand? Or is it evolving at all?
I'll answer the question in two parts, one at the national level, one specific to my institute, IIT Madras. So at the national level, Government of India started more than 15 years back, something called NPTEL, National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning, as a part of SWAYAM program. So through NPTEL, IIT Madras is a coordinating institute, but many institutions have come together. They offer courses online. About 400 courses are offered free of cost to students throughout the country. And in total, more than thousands of courses are being offered by different institutes in the country to students. About 4,000 plus colleges are the beneficiaries of this program. In fact, AICTE would like to have the courses from NPTEL being taken to credits for the students when they graduate. So to that extent, the Government of India is pushing towards reaching to the people at every corner of the country, the best of the minds giving the program from different IITs and IISc and other institutions. And I should say that there are about 400 million views and 10 million enrollments are there in this NPTEL program. It's a tremendous success, of which many courses are being offered with respect to programming as well as data science. That's one part. Second thing, IIT Madras level, we have a couple of initiatives. One is what it was the interdisciplinary dual degree program. A student after joining BTech at the end of second year or beginning of third year can opt for a data science specialization. Exactly what Dr. Samba was trying to say. I will say that a student, for example, if he joins chemical engineering at the end of second year, at the beginning of third year, suppose he or she wants to pursue a master's in data science, a student will start undergoing the courses related to data science right from the third year up to the end of the fifth year. He or she will get the degree, BTech degree in the parent discipline, MTech degree in data science. And the reason why we start at the beginning of third year is that we don't want to compel the student at the time of joining first year for the data science program. If the student is he or she is more free to take. And once the student gets excited about the data science program, and he or she joins the MTech program in data science, concurrent to the BTech program. And the advantage is that the student can get to see the applications of data science to the parent discipline. So you also ensure that the project work that you do, this is more of a thesis spanning over almost a year in the final year, and the student will take a course, a nice intense research intensive with practical applications, a thesis that has a focus on data science with application to the parent discipline. Okay, so this is one side. Other thing is that IIT Madras is perhaps the world's first, I should say, pioneering effort in terms of offering a BSc data science program. I think the first of its kind in the world. And there a student has the following three options. For example, at retirement, I can join the program. There's no age bar. Only thing a student must have taken in 10th standard, mathematics and English, must have finished 12th standard, must either be a current graduate in the ongoing program, or must have finished graduation, or might have even dropped out of the bachelor's program. Okay, so we give flexibility to the students at any point of time in the life to register for the course. And it has got three components. One is the foundation level. The student does about a couple of 6 to 10 courses foundation level. And at the end of which, there's an entrance exam. I forgot to tell you, there's an entrance exam. I think this year about 30,000 plus students appeared for the entrance exam, out of which 6,000 got admitted. There's no cap practically. We are willing to accept even up to 50,000 to 1 lakh students in this program. But the student of doing the foundation course may proceed to the diploma level course, and then thereafter the degree level. The student can also laterally enter at the diploma level and work with the diploma, but one has to undertake the examination once again at the diploma level. So at the end of almost 3 years, 2 years and 8 months, a student gets a bachelor's degree, a BSc degree in data science and programming. I think this is one of the most innovative approaches, because we are able to reach out to people in nooks and corners of the country who can be prepared for the data science career in their life. And the fee structure is pretty nominal. I think, if I recall correct, it's about 4,000 rupees per course to begin with in the foundation level. Okay, so it's more based on the number of courses that you credit. There's no compulsion for you to finish in 3 years. You can take your own sweet time. So this is how we have reacted to the needs of the country and needs of the industry in terms of offering a BSc online program in programming and data science. Okay. And we also have a couple of research centers. Of course, like Robert Bosch Center, and also we have IIT Madras Research Park, the first of its kind in the country, to have a university-based research park. So there we also willing to, we are also incubating ideas, the organization and so on to come here. And it has been a tremendous success. These two, IIT Research Park as well as Robert Bosch Center, are doing, reaching out to the people post their graduation, those who are working also.
Thank you, Professor Rajendran. It's very heartening to know that straitjacket old Indian university system is evolving rapidly to adjust for that. And I'm sure many of our audience would be benefited by the information they would be getting. I would come to Far and Dr. Samba one by one with a related question. The question is, the education is getting democratized in big way. Professor Rajendran has given one aspect of it. The other aspect is edX and Coursera and whole host of it. So at one place you have a person coming out of IIT with 5-year integrated graduate, BSc BTech course, 5-year integrated MSc MTech course, or an MTech or a BTech in Comp Science, etc., very structured and reputed. On the other hand, we have people who do not have these strong legacies on the CVs. Maybe they have done something from Coursera or these new courses which are popping up. When you are looking at a candidate, what's there in your mind? Are you getting swayed by the big brand names on the CV, or we are doing something to reach out? Maybe you may go first, and then I'll come to Dr. Samba with the same question.
Well, for us, as you know, Sanjay, for us, the data science is a spectrum, right? That goes from the engineering side of the discipline to the very scientific side of the discipline, and we're very open, welcoming to people across that spectrum. So for us, what's important is those skills. As you know, we're also quite fond of doing benchmarking of people to inform them of where they sit in this, so to help them understand themselves, where their skills sit, and then to be able to, on top of that, be able to complement them with the skills they need to surpass in whatever field where they feel they want to push harder. So I think from our perspective, I think we focus on those skills, on being confident of the skills. And the market is so hot now. If we go back to, I mean, we're maybe of a different generation to these wonderful people on the call. But the truth is, when we started, there was computer science or there was the science, right? The very science or the very engineering side, right? So now we have the wonderful luxury of having all these wonderful courses that the good professor has mentioned that allow people to make a lot of choices of where they want to focus. As a firm, as Accenture, we just welcome them in the spectrum all the way from engineering to science. And then what we try to do is help them understand where they are strong and where they can be stronger. That's our mission in the firm, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you, for Dr. Samba. What's there in your mind? What's your approach when you see so much of a diversity in CVs?
Yep. Sanjay, for me, right, let me just explain my thought process, right? For me, digital is actually a great equalizer, right? Because for example, with the online learning platforms and even a number of opportunities that IITs and other premier institutes in the country provide. And even like, for example, if someone is an enthusiast or wants to learn data science, right? This person can even learn from Stanford or Oxford or wherever I want to, because there are so many courses are available online, right? And especially in the current pandemic situation, even regular classes are happening on the, jokes apart, right? We anyway learn on the other side. So, learning is wide open now, and digital actually enables learning, and it is actually breaking boundaries, and even not even within the country, even it breaks international boundaries, right? You can learn anywhere, wherever you want. That is first, right? Second one is data science, the AI and all the other things that we are talking today is actually due to the open source evolution, right? Where everything is available open source, and anyone and everyone is using from the same knowledge repositories, code repositories. So as long as one shows interest, application, and attitude to learn, right, that person should be welcome, right? Industry and any organization would be welcoming such talent, because talent is more important. How one builds the talent is not that important, right? Because as long as one has the talent or one is willing to apply and build that talent, as I was talking to you the other day, right? Even when we are looking for freshers in my organization, or whenever I do recruitment for fresh talent, I look for 5-6 things. The first and foremost is curiosity. The second one is ability to learn continuously, right? Because this is one topic where there is no end to learning, right? One can continue to learn. So ability to learn. Third one is apply or experiment, go out of the box, take the risk, try new things. Fourth one is you should not like mathematics, probability, statistics, and these are some of those tics. You should actually apply coding skills, and then storytelling, right? And ability to communicate, work in a collaborative team. As long as one shows these skills and willing to work and continue to improve, such talent should be welcome, and we welcome all those talents. So that I don't think we look for any specific institutes and so on while we do any recruitment.
Thank you, Dr. Samba. And I'll come to Tani, you, and then to Professor Ranjan on other question. The question is, what is that symbiotic and synergistic relationship between academia and the industry? Tani, I would request an industry perspective from you. You have long experience right? And then I'll come to Dr. Rajendran for academia perspective on that.
Absolutely. So from my perspective, like the relationship between industry and academia, like it's extremely important and one that we really need to harness and leverage wherever possible. Industry has the business problems. It has quite often the data. It has the complexity in terms of things that they can't solve and things that they need to solve in order to progress forward. And this enables like academia to get access to data, solving current and complex, but also real world problems. So not only do university students then get the priceless exposure to industry, which I think is really important, but private enterprise like really start gaining access to some of the great thinkers, people with the headspace, the mindset, the ability, the time to think outside the box, think without biases, think without, that things might have been done a certain way for the certain period of time. They come with the cutting edge resources and access to new talent. So my personal perspective, like in addition, like the collaboration also, it really helps with graduates prepare for the real world. So when a graduate, then they actually graduate and enter the workforce, and when they come into my industry, they have critical professional skills that like we're currently demanding. It's not things that have been taught or repeated over a certain number of years. It's actually cutting edge and real world examples that they've been trained on. So I think it's excessively important.
Thank you, Dani. Dr. Rajendran, your perspective from academia, is it enough which is happening, particularly in India? You can give an international perspective also, or what else should be done here?
Yeah, I think in my opinion, India, every effort is being made to reach out to the industry. Okay. Let me talk in terms of both hard and soft aspects. In terms of hard aspect, for example, in IIT Madras, as I told you before, we have the IIT Madras Research Park, which is first of its kind in India, on the where we try to have the company organizations to come to the research park, set up the facilities, and then do collaborative work. I should say that I think so far more than 1,000 patents, 300 patents have been signed, and about 200 plus incubation centers have been, nurtured across more than 30 sectors. So in that way, I think many institutions are following suit, and even Government of India has set up something called STEP. And so many organizations, education institutions are definitely moving forward in terms of bridging the gap between industry and academia. And we also have some specialized, data science centers across the country. In IIT Madras, especially have Robert Bosch Center for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence, where we try to give emphasis on primarily the 4 verticals: manufacturing, financial, smart cities, and healthcare. So we are, and the nice thing is that we foster the startups, and there is all these, and the students while doing the program can take part in the activities of the center, and thereby they get a feel of the real life problem and get to solve the problems in real life, and vice versa. Okay, the industry people also get to know the advances that are there in academics. Many times, to me, I find that perhaps we are slightly ahead in terms of the mathematics or the algorithm part of data science. Okay, and we try to give this knowledge without any reference whether it's going to be used now or later, because we always believe that a student should go with as much as possible. Academics like to give a huge amount of input to the students, and eventually, perhaps later, the students may get to use such algorithms or the theoretical foundation used for them when they pursue the career. This is what I call the soft side. Okay. So for example, many times, when you look at this auto ML or the auto fine tuning, parameter tuning in ML, you generally make use of the so-called, invoke the built-in, the modules or built-in thing, and then you try to do. Whereas in academics, you try to tell them how to go for a systemic approach, whether for design of experience approach, or whether you go for some of these meta-heuristics such as swarm intelligence or evolutionary computation, okay, where you can design your own algorithm for optimization of the parameters. Okay, for example, you get into Excel, there always you have some options where you say, okay, evolutionary computation, or you go for optimization techniques such as integer branch and and so on. So students tick it without even knowing what logic behind that so-called black boxes. So we try to tell them how systematically you can try to, optimize the setting of parameters so that the best performance of any algorithm, whether it is RF or ANN, can be harvested. So to that extent, and we also have some centers specifically, across different departments and IITs. In IIT Delhi, they have a center where for law and technology, where they're trying to collaborate with, of course, the Supreme Court being situated there, they have the advantage of collaborating with the highest court in the country, and they are trying to bring in the application of data analytics, into judiciary. And in IIT Madras, we try to bring the application of data analytics. For example, we have the Center for Startups and Entrepreneurship. I think Mr. Avinash Sabharwal, your MD, is also on the board, incidentally. Okay, so we try to reach out to the industry to ensure that whether it's Center of Excellence or academic programs, there is always close relationship between industry and academics. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rajendran. This is a wonderful interaction, actually, wonderful conversation. If time permits, I would like to continue for next 1 hour, but clock is ticking away. So I have to bring this to a close. And from my side, thank you very much to all the participants. But before closing, I would like to request Senthil Ramani, who is our AI lead for growth markets, to come on the stage and give a vote of thanks to the participants. Dr. Senthil, please. Mr. Senthil, please. Sen, you are on mute.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the rich conversation we've just had, Sanjay. Thanks for being the moderator here. I want to thank for being here and joining us from London. Tani, thanks for your time over dinner, I think this evening from Australia. Dr. Rajendran from IIT Madras. Thank you very much. We love the collaboration with IIT Madras. We want to continue that. And with Dr. Samba, who is also incidentally my client. So I hope we said the right things, because I'm going to get a lot of action items from him tomorrow if we did not. So Samba, again, thank you very much for that. We really appreciate all the insights that came in. I really hope the participants appreciated the richness of the conversation and what this really means in terms of data science and your careers for the next few years. So again, best wishes to everyone who's applied into Accenture. We really hope you all have a wonderful AI career. Back to you, Sanjay and the team. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you to all the esteemed panelists for the insightful discussion that we had. Thanks for sharing the inputs that you've shared. Definitely, future looks bright as the sunshine for data science, and this looks like the perfect time to start a career in data science. Well, this brings us to our second segment, where we have Ajay Mishra and Rajesh Rangaswamy, who look forward to interacting with you in our special breakout rooms. Ajay Mishra is the managing director at our AI Global Hub. He is having more than 2 decades of experience in driving business value using cloud analytics and technology, focusing on AI/ML solutions, analytics modernization, and cloud data warehousing. Ajay would be interacting with you on the topic cloud analytics, market, talent, skills. We also have Rajesh Rangaswamy, who is a managing director at Accenture Applied Intelligence. His expertise lies in analytics and management consulting, supply chain planning, after sales transformation, manufacturing operations, and Rajesh would be sharing his insights on the topic analytics in supply chain. Our leaders, Ajay and Rajesh, are waiting for you in the breakout rooms. You can now join the breakout session for the topic of your interest and get your questions answered, get all your questions answered. please click on the breakout room tab on the main screen to get started for that. And I hope you enjoyed this segment, and I hope you'll enjoy the next segment as well. And you'll take back valuable insights, which will help you take your data science career into greater heights. Don't forget to click on your photo in our photo booth and share it with your friends on social media channel. Do visit our conversational zone and interact with our recruitment team for any recruitment related queries you have to come into Accenture, or any other queries regarding recruitment that you may have. Right? And you can also grow your career in the best in AI world with us and experience boundaryless opportunities that AI brings to us by just applying for a role at Accenture. And with that, as you all move to your respective breakout rooms, I would like to thank all of you for joining. Big thanks. Bye from my side. Bye for now. Sayonara. Until we meet again.